Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augment Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I am your host as usual. And obviously, welcome back to the show. Today's episode 73 of the show, which still is crazy to think about that we've already hit 73 episodes. 2 more away, and we already hit a quarter away of 100 episodes of the show, which is insane. I know. I'm going to be saying that, like, if we keep this show going and we hit like 1,000 episodes, it's going to be crazy. But obviously, today is going to be a very interesting episode because we're talking about cars again. But not just any car. We're talking about a very particular car that's been, I'd say, been a mixed bag, you know? And I think it's a mixed bag, not only just in the tech community, but I'd say also in just the car communities, because, you know, like, it's not your run-of-the-mill everyday car. And I think that's what makes it crazy to think about, because it's not as, I wouldn't say it's as black and white, because it's very polarizing, I think is the right term. And I know for many people, it's been very polarizing. And obviously, you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this Tesla Cybertruck, because that's what you guys voted on for this week. And, you know, what do I think about it? Because obviously, I watched some of the event. I watched a lot of videos when the car came out, and I was like, what in God's green earth is this thing? I was like, what is this thing? This thing looks really weird. I've seen so many memes about this truck. Like, I think you guys probably have too. Like, there's been meme after meme after meme after meme. And, you know, it, to me, you know, thinking about the idea of this truck is one of the most, I'd say it really is one of the most polarizing things to think about, because when you think about it, it's not your average, obviously it's common sense. This definitely is not your average car. Because this thing does not look like your average truck, which obviously a lot of people were expecting this. Like, they wanted Tesla to make a truck because obviously Teslas are really popular in the United States. And I think what makes it interesting is how their first shot at a truck instantly gets everyone like, what in the heck is this thing? And I know a lot of people are like, you know, what the heck, you know, like, what is this thing? And I think, to me, I thought the same way. I honestly, when I saw this truck, I thought, this thing is ugly. This thing looks super weird. And, you know, it didn't make sense, because it's like, why? Like, why? Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why would you make a truck like this, you know? And, like, obviously, one of my favorite memes that people, it's a account that I follow on Instagram, that they're like, dude, I swear I drew this in kindergarten. And I'm like, yeah, you know how like everyone always draws box trucks and everything, you know? But let's talk about the truck, because the design, we can talk about this design for like an hour if we wanted to. And I know a lot of the car guys that listen to my show, because obviously they've listened to my Tesla versus Rivian, which, you know, it kind of goes into that. But it's like I mentioned in how the Tesla and Rivian episode that we did a while back, which, think about it, that was like about like 30 plus episodes, maybe 40 plus ago. And to think about it, it's so crazy, because we back then, we even knew that Tesla was going to make a truck. We knew it was going to happen, even though, yes, we've seen multiple interviews where Elon is like, look, we're not thinking about making a Tesla truck. It's not on our minds right now. Like, we're just not thinking about it. We're focusing on the Model 3, getting as cheap as possible, you know, and, you know, focusing on what's already in front of them. And they didn't, like, they try to spin it to make it seem like they didn't really care about the trucks, because I know a lot of people were like, look, we want an electric truck, and the only company we trust right now is Tesla, because when you think of electric vehicles, you think of Tesla. You don't think of anybody else. That's also because Tesla is the most, I'd say in terms of feature packed cars, yes, they are the most popular EVs on the market. Clearly they are. Like, the numbers don't lie. Even though, yes, the other manufacturers are currently catching up because they're doing the best they can, which obviously in terms of manufacturing and putting these things together, yes, other companies do have more resources than Tesla, because obviously like Ford is making their electric truck, or not electric truck, but they're making the electric Mustang, and they're making, you have Porsche making the Taycan, you got Mercedes making their, like, you got, I mean, like, there's so many crazy things going on because now the big manufacturers are making electric vehicles. And then you have Tesla going into the space that's very, I'd say very competitive, because when you think of a truck, you think of Ford, you think of Chevy, and obviously if you get like Ram, you think of Ram, or you think of GM, you think of those brands, but primarily you think of Ford, especially because in Texas, as Texans, we gotta love our Fords, that's just how it is. But you look at this thing and you're like, what is this? Like, what is it? But aside from that, let's actually talk a little bit about what this thing actually brings to the table, because the design, we'll go into that a little bit more, and I'll actually explain my thoughts a little bit more on it. So obviously we're pulling up the Tesla page right now for the Cybertruck. Obviously you can order it now if you're interested in that. Obviously they made it very clear about the order. So obviously they split it up into multiple categories, like the versatile utility, the performance and efficiency, the exoskeleton, because when you think about it, the exoskeleton alone is already a very interesting choice. So let's talk about it. So let's actually pull up what they say on the Tesla website. So the Cybertruck is built with an exterior shell made for ultimate durability and passenger protection. Starting with a nearly impenetrable exoskeleton, every component is designed for superior strength, endurance, from ultra hard 30x cold rolled stainless steel structural skin to Tesla armored glass. Obviously the glass, if you watch the event, that was obviously the big joke of the night, because they're like, we'll fix it in post because it broke. So anyways, the stainless steel shell. So they talk about the ultra hard, 30x cold rolled, just fancy thing. It's just a stainless steel shell. So it says, if there was something better, we'd use it. Help eliminate dents, damage, long-term corrosion with smooth monochrome exoskeleton that puts the shell on the outside of the car and provides you and the passengers maximum protection. Talked about the armored glass, which, obviously failed in the demonstration. So we talk about the versatile utility. So they obviously talk about the whole towing capacity, which with the max configuration of this car, it talks about that it's able to tow over 14,000 pounds, which is very incredible when you think about it. It actually is. And obviously, like the adaptable air suspension, we're talking about the interior. Obviously, like, keep in mind that the interior and stuff when they showed at the event is not final interior, because it's very bare bones, like if you watch a lot of videos. Obviously, the performance is what has a lot of people going goo-goo about, because, obviously it says now entering a new class of strength, speed, and versatility, only possible with an all-electric design. The powerful drivetrain and low center of gravity provides extraordinary traction control and torque, enabling acceleration from 0 to 60 in as little as 2.9 seconds and up to 500 miles in range, which, yeah, a lot of people are like, oof. It gets a lot of people going crazy, because obviously for a Tesla car, if you guys are aware, the max range caps out like 350, around that range. So the fact that this car is going to be the biggest range on a Tesla vehicle, about 500 miles, is incredible, So let's talk about the specs for each one, because we'll break down each one individually, because obviously different prices and everything. So the single motor rear wheel drive, which is or WRD, if you want to be more technical, obviously it goes 0 to 60 in less than 6.5 seconds. It's a range of 250 plus miles. Obviously that's EPA estimated. The drivetrain is a rear wheel drive. It obviously has a storage capacity of 100 cubic feet. It has a vault length of 6.5 feet, a towing capacity of 7,500 plus pounds. Obviously, autopilot standard, so naturally it's built in there. Adaptive air suspension standard. Ground clearance up to 16 inches. And then we obviously like the approach, which doesn't really matter. Then we go into the dual motor AWD. So then we drop the 0 to 60 to less than 4.5 seconds. We increase the range by about 50, because it says 300 plus miles. Then we switched to a dual motor all-wheel drive. Same storage capacity. Same vault height. Obviously, the towing capacity also increases as well. We go up to 10,000 plus pounds. So we always get that nice little increase. And then obviously the big boy itself, which is a less than 2.9 seconds, up to 500 miles of range. This is the tri-motor all-wheel drive, and obviously the big towing capacity. And obviously when we talk about pricing, we obviously click on order now because you have to do that to look at pricing. So they're advertising that they want to start the single motor version at $39,900. The dual motor version is going to go up to an extra $10,000, so it's $49,900. And then for the tri-motor, you're going to spend an extra $20,000, so you go up to $69,970. And obviously, this doesn't include the self-driving, the full self-driving functionality. That's an extra $7,000. So, I think to me, for the price, it is very competitive. And obviously, you have to keep in mind that Tesla, specifically like with the Model 3 as well, if we want to bring up the Model 3, they advertised that they wanted to get the Model 3 down to 35,000 or less then. And it took them a long time to do it because there was a lot of things they had to do. So I think because obviously you have to keep in mind, this is the numbers that they're starting out with. It may not actually come out to that price point starting off. It may not. To be honest, it may not come out at this price. And there's many things that, to be honest, how would I say? To me, it's very interesting to think about because when I look at it, it's kind of up in the air because obviously this car doesn't come out for like a while. Clearly, we know that the tri-motor version isn't going to come out till 2020 or actually 2021, I believe. I think it's like 2021 because they're going to start shipping these out like in 2020 or something. And I think to me it's crazy because when you think about it, you're getting a lot of bang for the buck. Because obviously, yes, in terms of trucks, obviously many people are going to compare it to the Ford F-150 because that's what a lot of the video comparisons were with the F-150 and the towing capacity and how it's so competitive with the standard trucks. But obviously we're talking about price differences and everything because, it's very interesting to think about because when you think of a truck, people already have a trained perspective, and that's always the key in this entire. I'd say it's always the key thing in anything is always perspective. Perspective is key no matter what, and depending on what you consider a vehicle or in this case a truck, you may not think of this as a truck. To people that aren't truck people and don't have, I'd say like they don't have a trained viewpoint about what to look for in a truck. This looks like a truck to them. And I kind of think it leads to why a lot of people are torn about, especially because of the design. It's not that the performance is great. I have a lot of friends that are big truck enthusiasts. They love trucks and they love this truck on paper. They just don't like how it looks. And we're going to transition to the looks department because, like I said, perspective plays a key role. For us in the tech community, this looks cool. It looks like the future. It looks futuristic. But then there's also some of us inside the tech community. It's like, this thing is ugly. Like, Elon, like, what were you smoking? Like, what were you guys thinking? Is this like an early April Fool's joke or something, or an out-of-date April Fool's joke? Because it's crazy because a lot of people, I've gotten many comments about this where people are like, Josh, this thing is not street legal. There's no way this can be on the street. This thing doesn't have rear view mirrors. Doesn't have that. Obviously, yes, they have cameras on the back so you can actually like on the inside. So instead of like, I would say I don't know if I'd call it a passenger mirror. Like I always call it that. Like I'd say like the mirror that's obviously, like in the middle of your car, that it doesn't have that. It's actually just a camera that looks behind you and everything. And a lot of people have made that joke. It's like, look, dude, this thing doesn't have headlights and things like that, which obviously it does. It's just a big bar across. But, people have a lot of concerns because they're like, this thing doesn't look like a truck. This thing looks weird. It looks ugly. And people are like, no, like, I don't care about the specs. The appearances matter. And, to them, they're like, dude, this ain't it, chief. This is ugly. Like, this is butt ugly, bro. And I think it's kind of interesting to think about because a lot of my friends are torn about it. And I'm torn about it a bit too as well because on one hand, I like the idea that they went creative, that they went out of the box, that they didn't just do the stereotypical of like, do what Tesla normally does and just take another car they made and modify it a little bit, and then, you know, boom, there's your new car. And I think with this, they definitely wanted to go outside the box, both figuratively and literally. And they definitely made something unique. They made something that sticks out, because obviously it's got people's attention. You know, it's not something that is like, oh, that's cool, but forget about it. No, like, it looks cool for some people, it looks ugly to some people, but it got people talking, and it got people talking for a while. And obviously, if we're being honest, it did lead to some very successful sales, if you think about it, because I know a lot of people were joking about this. If I remember correctly, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, because I know I also had a picture about it too, where people were joking about it, and they talked about how, like, people didn't like this truck, they thought it was ugly, and they posted pictures of, like, when everyone said, and this is like a meme, but it's obviously actually true because of facts, that says when everyone says the truck looks, you know, blank, but you sell 146,000 in 2 days. Like, it's, you know, to me, it's like, wow, like, it's crazy, because it's like, even after the fail on stage, you know, like, with the armored glass breaking and everything, you know, people laughed. It was just funny to watch. Like, they definitely did the best thing to get people talking, because it got people talking about the truck. It got people interested. And to me, I think what I like about the idea is that Tesla wasn't afraid to go outside the box. Now, I will say this. Do I believe this will be the final design of the Cybertruck? No. And I think me and many other people share this opinion that we do not believe that this is going to be the final design of the truck. Because obviously, like we mentioned, people that posted videos about, you know, the quick little test drives they had with the truck, that the interior is not complete. It's definitely not. It's just very bare bones. And there's still some things that need to be added. And who knows? They might even revamp the design and change it a little bit so it doesn't look so, like, jarring, I think is the right term to use, is that it's not so, you know, so out there. Like, they might go with a more moderate design, think of something a little bit more, you know, conservative. And, you know, like, I think to me, it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because Tesla doesn't always act like every other company, you know? Like, they don't. Like, obviously, yes, you have one of the smartest human beings running your company. At the same time, you also have a very, very loyal fan base. Tesla fans love Tesla. Like, they live, breathe, and die by Tesla. Like, that is just, you know, that's Tesla fans. Tesla, you know, they have their audience. They have people that are interested. You know, they have people that want to buy their products. And, you know, it's crazy to think about, you know, because it's like, it's so, I'd say, even in terms of the charging network and everything, it's such a good option for most people. Even though, yes, it is a very expensive item, it's still not, you know, it's still not for the mass market. Clearly, we have to be honest with ourselves. It still isn't, because even coming out with this truck, offering what it does at $39,900, you know, it's still going to be a tough sell, even though, yes, a lot of people have ordered and everything. And, you know, like, we'll find out what happens, because, you know, people are interested. We clearly see people are interested in this, because it's jarring. It sticks out. Like, it's something, it's a step in a direction that's interesting, because now we have a good, I wouldn't say good, because, you know, we still have the Rivian coming, which obviously the Rivian is going to be interesting when it comes out, because obviously now it's going to be competing with the Cybertruck. And going back to it too, that I mentioned earlier with the Rivian, that the Rivian is still coming. Like, the Rivian truck is still coming next year. And it's going to be interesting to see how this works out, because a lot of people ask this question, like, what, with Rivian making the truck, the first electric truck, because yes, they were the first ones to, you know, have a design ready and everything to go. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, because how is this going to compete with the Cybertruck, you know? Like, and it's going to be crazy, because you have to think about it, that the main selling point to having a Tesla is getting access to the charging network, because the supercharge network is so vast, it's so broad in the US, that yes, some people, they swear by it, that they're like, yes, you can do an entire trip across many states with, you know, the lowest mileage version of a Tesla car, because there's so many charging networks, and or there's more charging stations. There's a lot of supercharge stations now that you're able to travel between states much more efficiently. And it's definitely a crazy idea to think about because, yes, that's one benefit to Tesla. And that's why Tesla is not afraid to open up the network to everybody, because that's what Elon wants. Elon Musk said it himself. He does not care if Tesla fails. He doesn't. What he cares about is making an impact and making sure people buy electric cars. Like, put it as an option on the table that make companies, push for this direction. And it's so crazy because it's the reality. There is no way around this. And obviously they've invested a lot of money, a lot of time to build this supercharged network. And they've obviously open sourced it, so anybody's allowed to use it if they wanted to. It's just nobody wants to because they don't want to partner with Tesla because, car manufacturers, they're petty, bro. Like, they're petty. We're not going to stand here. We know they're petty. We know that they're not going to want to work with another company that's, creating a lot of buzz. And I think, to me, it's crazy to think about because it's like, yeah, like Tesla making a truck is definitely a big impact because now it's definitely getting Ford and all them, I think with this, it's definitely going to make them think a little bit more, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's healthy. You present options to the market and then you push, you give the consumer more choice because that's obviously what leads to more win. And obviously when competition starts, both companies are pushing to make the best and nobody's like giving an inch because they're like, if we give an inch, then they're going to take our customers. And, it's healthy for the customer and the customer always wins in this scenario. But you also have to keep in mind, compared to normal cars and trucks are a much different animal when it comes to design because people, as I mentioned before, when they think of a truck, they think of Ford, they think of Chevy, they think of, obviously in Chevy, they're referring to the Silverado. And then, to me, it's going to be interesting to see what Tesla does in this scenario because, they're definitely in the hot seat because they made a very, very jarring looking car, a very eye opener. It got attention because if you drove this in the street, this is definitely going to turn heads. They're going to be like, what is this thing? This thing looks ridiculous. And it's going to turn heads. And I think that's kind of what Elon wants is like, it's very jarring because that's how you make a statement, like you do something that nobody else has done and you get national headlines. You get everyone talking and you put so much attention on this truck. You got people ordering in the hundreds of thousands. Like, it is insane on how well this worked. And they even turned the whole disaster with the iron ball thing. Like, they definitely turned that and made it into a really funny moment. And kudos to them to handling it the way they did. I think, to me, with the Tesla Cybertruck, I don't like the design, but like I said before, I do not believe that this is going to be the final design. I do believe there's going to be more to this design that's going to be added, and maybe there might be a U-Haul. Maybe this is just, just an early, I wouldn't say an early version, but like they have ideas on how to tweak this to make it look more conservative, make it look a little bit nicer and prettier because, like obviously when you look at the other Teslas, they're really nice and pretty. So I hope they can work a little bit of that magic and see if they can rough out a good amount of these edges and make it look a little bit smoother and, make it look a little bit nicer. Like, personally, that's what I want. Like, that's what I want, and that's what a lot of people want, and that's what a lot of people feel, that we don't think this is the final design. We think they're definitely thinking of some ways to edit this design. They just wanted to get it out there and show the world, like, hey, we're working on this, and get people's attention. And I think it was a smart move. I think Tesla definitely made the right call with what they did. The launch event was really good. Obviously, for people that went, for people that I know, that it was in the same place as SpaceX, so it was across the street from it. So it's going to be very interesting. Overall, I'm happy for Tesla that they made this decision to go in this direction, to make an electric truck finally. I think it was one of the best things they can do because it was the one vehicle everyone was waiting for, that people were seeing, what would Tesla do with a truck? Like, how can they design a truck? And they definitely went overboard. I think that when people said they wanted to see how creative they can get, I don't think they meant it absolutely literally. I think they meant, like, let's see if they can make a good truck. But on paper, this thing looks amazing. This is phenomenal. The price range, I'd say, is good. Obviously, I think as time goes by, they're going to definitely lower the price of this truck. And they're going to make it more affordable. I think that's what's going to happen because, you know, it took Tesla a while to get the Model 3 low, but they finally did it. It just took a while to do it, but I do feel like this truck is going to be interesting. It's definitely a good call for Tesla. It's definitely a good move, and I can only wait and see how this plays out for them and see, you know, what happens because, you know, next year is going to be very competitive. You got the Cybertruck and you got the Rivian, and then obviously you got Ford and, you know, whoever else decides to make an electric vehicle soon. So, but anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for your time and coming back and listening to the show. I really appreciate it. I love you guys so much. You guys are awesome. I thank you guys for constantly coming back, sharing the episodes, listening to said episodes. And obviously, I also want to say thank you guys again for all the love and support for the episode regarding relationships. It's obviously the most successful episode on the show now because you guys seem to really love that episode. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. I love you guys tremendously for all your love and support. You guys have been incredible. Obviously, this has been an incredible year so far. Obviously, we're closing in on my first year of doing this show, which is crazy to think about that it's already been almost been a year doing this. And, you know, it's just crazy. But I'm humbled by this opportunity. I'm humbled that you guys keep giving me an audience and keep coming back and listening. It really means a lot to me. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Obviously, like I mentioned before on my social medias, we have a guest coming on the show next week to talk about AirPods Pro because a lot of you have been asking me to, I wouldn't say redo the episode, but provide another perspective with the AirPods Pro because, you know, some people didn't like that I was a little bit too negative. They thought I was too negative, you know, like a lot of interesting statements. And they're like, you know, maybe a good idea to have some guests on to talk about it. And I'm like, sure, I don't mind. And we have someone very special coming on the show. So I'll leave it like that because that's all I really can share for right now. But I love you guys to death. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend, guys. Please be safe. Don't do anything dumb. And I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.